Hi everyone, welcome back. We are going to continue reading Entitled, and you know what? We're almost halfway through it. So this is not taking nearly as long as I thought it would. I thought we'd be on this for a month. But fingers crossed, it looks like maybe just over a week, but if we can get some really good readings in, maybe a week. All right, this next chapter is entitled Thomas Muster. With Andrew at sea for long stretches at a time, the Yorks went long periods without speaking, often with literal oceans between them. In January 1996, Sarah flew to Qatar for the Mobile Tennis Open and had an opportunity to raise money for children in crisis, staying in the two-floored head of state suite costing £2,650 a night, with everything paid for by the Emir Hamad bin Al Thani. At a gala dinner marking the end of the tournament, she met Thomas Muster, a handsome Austrian tennis player, then ranked third in the world, and invited him to her hotel, where they drank champagne until the early hours. In a departure from her scheduled program, she canceled her tickets to Britain, missing her daughter's return to school, and followed him to Melbourne, where he was preparing for the forthcoming Australian Open, checking into the same hotel. She claimed the trip was a shopping expedition. Now, is Melbourne known for their shopping? Like, I know, London, Paris. Of course, my brain is glitching, but, not Rome, but, the city in Italy, that's, But I've never heard anyone say, like, oh, yes, Melbourne. Oh, this girl. In February, Muster flew to Britain to keep a date with the Duchess. His mother said he was smitten, and the tennis player broke off his engagement to his fiancée, Mariella Tyner. Well, she dodged a bullet, didn't she? They say that no woman takes your man, they take your problem. According to Jeannie Madison, with whom Muster was also having an affair at the time. Dirty dog. The Duchess bombarded him with suggestive phone messages and sent him a signed photo captioned, "Just love the service." She claimed the two met regularly. He would book himself into hotels under the name Kenneth Dean, with Sarah arriving in blonde wig and dark glasses. He called her his princess of passion. She called him Herman, after the TV monster Herman Munster. Oh, how clever. Munster. Also known as Raging Bull, Muster boasted of bedding 1,000 women. I can't, for the life of me, think of why a woman would be attracted to a man who's like, yeah, 1,000 women. I'd be like, sir, please guard your loins when you're near me. I better go to, let me put on a few pairs of pants. You're probably riddled with disease. Gross. Okay. Madison claimed, I hear she drops the kids off with nannies while they go and bop until they drop. Ugh. He was invited to stay at Kingsbourne for Wimbledon, but declined. Muster's mother, Inge, claimed, this Fergie has turned his head so he thinks of nothing else. Why should someone from the British royal family want to chase all around the world with our son? Listen, if his own mother is like, what is she doing? Why in the world would she want to run around after this guy? And that's his literal mother? Well, you know what he is. He's a dirty dog. Thomas has been bewitched by her and the chance to hobnob with royalty. That's what his mother continues to say. So he's on the make. The tennis player denied any romance. Sarah's very nice, but as far as being my girlfriend is concerned, that's ridiculous. She isn't even my type. I see her as a friend, and not even a very close one. That takes years. We've only met a few times, so I don't know her well. To say we're having a relationship is making elephants out of guy is giving major fuckboy energy. I mean, as though we didn't know that from the betting 1,000 women. But ew. Man, she has terrible taste. Supposedly, the relationship cooled after Muster claimed the Duchess was using him for her own publicity purposes. His father was quoted as saying, "It's difficult to get rid of people like Sarah Ferguson. We wish him luck." All the while, press reports put her debts at over £1 million. John Bryan was himself in financial difficulties, with unpaid bills from British Telecom, American Express Europe, and a firm of London solicitors, and facing fraud charges over the £10 million collapse of a construction company, Oceanics Deutschland. Weird. Arguing that he was entitled to a share of the budgie deal, which he had negotiated and the rights to which Sarah had now passed to Ray Chambers, he was threatening to sell the story of his 4-year relationship with her. The Duchess was equally determined to enforce a gagging order that banned him from disclosing any incident, conversation, or other information whatsoever concerning HRH or any member of the royal family or any other person connected with H by birth, marriage, or otherwise. On 11 February 1996, the Sunday Mirror ran a front-page story, Fergie Sex Snap Sensation, reporting that Bryan was touting explicit photographs of her as well as a memoir. He needed to be paid off. A Buckingham Palace insider was clear. Because she was so indiscreet, Bryan knows every bit of tattletale that could cause maximum embarrassment to the Queen, no doubt. I mean, Sarah she has her guard down no matter who she's with, so I can't imagine with being with someone for 4 years. I mean, any of us, if we were in a relationship for 4 years, we have our guard down. But, she'd just be yapping. But I mean, to be fair, all of us, like I said, after being in a relationship for 4 years, we'd all be yapping. Okay. Sarah, herself on maneuvers, had arranged to have lunch the next day with agent Marvin Josephson, who had acted for, among others, Margaret Thatcher, Henry Kissinger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, to discuss selling her memoirs. The palace, tipped off about the meeting, reminded her of her obligations under the divorce settlement. The meeting was postponed. The games of memoir poker continued to be played through the media, with a front-page story later that month that Bryan was finalizing a £6 million kiss-and-tell book about Sarah. In response, she flew to Paris in an attempt to stop the negotiations. A few days later, the Sunday Times reported Bryan as saying he absolutely and positively was not planning to betray the Duchess by writing a multi-million-pound kiss-and-tell. I don't know how to make it any more categorical and black and white. I kind of wish he had, though, because we could read it. Because I bet he would have had some wild stories. On 28 April 1996, the newspaper's front page ran, "World Exclusive. John Bryan tells all. I had sex with Fergie as she spoke to Andy on the phone." The tabloid devoted 6 pages to how she had spoken to Andrew and Steve Wyatt while making love to Bryan, how her daughters would run into Fergie in Bryan's bedroom to play with Mummy and her friend on the bed, how she spent 30 hours a week consulting psychics, including speculation over when the Queen Mother would die, how when told that Prince Charles, who had escaped death in an avalanche, would die in a second one, she excitedly rang Diana, how she played Bryan along for 4 years, using the excuse that Charles might renounce the throne and Andrew become regent. He revealed her £860,000 annual expenditure, which included £300,000 on staff, £150,000 on gifts, £50,000 on flowers, £50,000 on parties, and £150,000 on travel. How she spent £100,000 on clothes, £25,000 in an hour's spending spree in Bloomingdale's, and how her father had been caught by his second wife entertaining 2 women in a room at Claridge's a week before Sarah's engagement, and what he described as a business meeting. Wow. And Bryan described how the two had fallen out when he had wanted a cut of Budgie's profits in return for his work exploiting the rights. She screamed at his partner, Alan Starkey, "Why would I give him anything? Budgie is all mine. It's my third baby." Despite the fact that Brian had posed for photographs and quotes had been attributed to him, including lots of detail only he could have known, the paper claimed he had not been paid and that most of the money had gone to Starkey. Brian did, however, admit that some of his legal bills were paid. His lawyer, Achim Groper, suggested Sarah may have also been paid, refusing to rule out the possibility that the Duchess herself might be in line for a windfall from the book. "I don't want to answer that," he said. "We have had conversations with her." The articles, for which Brian and Starkey had received £100,000 to be shared equally, were based on 4 hours of audio that Brian had recorded, as well as 250 pages of letters, documents, and personal observations that Starkey had collected. Journalist Clive Goodman, who was involved in the deal, confirmed Brian was, of course, deeply involved in this, all the way through, from caviar to nuts. He had copy approval, and I had to read him every line. The newspaper started looking into the finance of the Duchess's American charity, Chances for Children. It had been set up in November 1994 to restore dignity, to provide hope, and reduce suffering. But there were also suspicions that it gave the Duchess a high profile and instant access to an elite social circle, and thus was an ideal platform from which to launch a business plan of her own. As a non-profit-making organization, the charity did not have to pay property or sales tax, did not pay federal income tax, and its office on 6th Avenue was provided rent-free by U.S. News and World Report, the weekly owned by Mortimer Zuckerman, a powerful contact of Sarah's. There were concerns the charity was also being used as the U.S. branch of her private office, with staff required to locate her favorite perfume and fix meetings with fortune tellers, diet doctors, hairstylists, and manicurists. One investigation found that less than half of the £110,000 donated to the charity had gone to sick children. Tax records showed that over a 6-month period, wages and expenses came to £58,000, with only £40,000 of charitable donations. None of the reputed £60,000 raised at a £600 a plate cocktails and dinner in Connecticut on the Duchess's previous trip to America had found its way to the Oklahoma Children's Hospital, though it was paid later. As the piece appeared, she was on holiday in the Bahamas with her daughters. Promises made to the charities were not always honored. The Sarah Ferguson Foundation had claimed to help the Littlest Lamb Orphanage with a substantial donation to build a kids' home in Cairo, but when approached, its director, Mira Riyad, revealed, "She has never paid us. She said she was going to pay us some money a while ago, but we have not received any. She hasn't attended any of our events, and I can't remember when I last spoke to her." At the time the error was pointed out, the claim was removed from the SFF website and replaced with a pledge to make a donation as soon as possible. When approached in 2024, Riyad said, "To the best of my knowledge, the donation from the Duchess was not received." In March 1996, the Emir of Qatar invited Sarah to return for the annual Festival of the Horse and ride in the International Qatar Horse Marathon, a punishing 26-mile race over sand in 100-degree heat with a $100,000 prize fund. She was to be sponsored by an oil company, giving any prize money to children in crisis. Her father would act as equine consultant. She was also accompanied by her personal journalist, Albert Zarka, and Princess Marie Esmeralda, half-sister of the King of Belgium, her PR representative, Kate Waddington, and her housekeeper, Sally Fish, though her £2,650 a night suite already came with the services of a housekeeper. Sarah finished 25th out of 27 entrants, arriving 90 minutes after the winner, though still an hour quicker than the previous year's celebrity rider, Patrick Swayze. Nonetheless, she collected $6,000 for her charity, and the team from Hello got its exclusive story, photographers having been banned from taking her picture. The spread duly appeared in the magazine, earning the Duchess £70,000 from the sale of the photographs. She had been given a complete makeover, with freckles removed and a flawless white complexion and kohl-rimmed eyes, in what one paper described as looking like an extra from The Night of the Living Dead. I don't know. I kind of like that photograph. I mean, I don't like that her freckles are removed because I love freckles. I think they're just a beautiful feature. And, but I love the kohl-rimmed eyes, if I'm honest. I think it's a stunning look. Not on me. I age about 30 years as soon as I put on kohl-rimmed eyeliner. All right, we are moving into where am I supposed to look? There? Part 3, entitled Divorce. Oh my. Through all of this, the affairs, the extravagance, the waste, the press attention, the globe-hopping, the selfishness, the Yorks had contrived to remain married. Now the dam broke. The strain of it all was too much for the royal family. On 17 March 1996, Andrew was told to divorce the woman he still loved. The Queen had finally lost patience with the Duchess, according to a palace insider. The public humiliation of her son, capped by Sarah's behavior with Brian, it all had to end. Andrew was torn, believing their relationship could still be saved, but many felt Sarah was using him. "She's very manipulative and can twist him any way she wants," said one official figure close to them both, putting it down to his naivete rather than stupidity. So many people have urged him to put his foot down, but instead of doing something, he just gets angry that the matter is even being raised. The well-informed journalist Anthony Holden revealed dull, thick couch potato, pro-am golf, and Stallone videos, yawn, yawn. This is the message now coming from Sarah's camp about the man she once adored. Fergie thought she was marrying Warren Beatty, however you want to pronounce it, but found herself hitched to Mr. Blobby, with all the controversial sparkle of Nigel Mansell. I don't want to defend Andrew because now we know that he's a pig. I mean, he was a pig back then too, but, he just seems like, he was just kind of a regular guy, Lots of guys just like to sit around and watch Stallone. What's a man supposed to be, What's he supposed to do in his free time? Like, climb Everest? Is that what she wanted? Like, someone who was a great big adventurer that she could, be impressed by? I don't know. The announcement of the divorce came on 16 April while Sarah and the princesses were on a week's holiday at Patty McNally's chalet in Verbier, and Andrew was at Portland. She passed off the stipulation that she would lose her title of Her Royal Highness, a particular blow, as something she had chosen to do herself. But according to Madame Vasso, I also knew that the claim that Sarah had chosen to drop the title Her Royal Highness had to be untrue. Whenever we spoke, she had always stressed how important being an HRH was to her, not least because she felt it gave her the respect she believed was her due as a member of the royal family. The press took the opportunity to reflect on the marriage, which had somehow lasted 10 years. The Mirror produced a special 8-page supplement, Worst Wife of Windsor, arguing that it might have all been quite different if she had been able to combine the fun with hard work and duty. Isn't that the truth? And that's kind of what we've been commenting and saying all along, is that if she had been able to keep that sort of light-hearted way about her, but, work like a dog, basically, she would have been great. But she just couldn't seem to marry the two. Instead, the paper characterized Fergie's brief career as Her Royal Highness the Duchess of York as a vulgar extended holiday, the embarrassments endless, each one more cringeworthy than the last. During 1987, she carried out only 55 public engagements compared to the Princess Royal's 429. Sarah's financial position became ever more desperate, made worse by the decision of the Manhattan Company that had marketed her budgie products in shops and put the character on Fox television to file for bankruptcy protection in a legal ploy in a dispute over millions of pounds in royalties. She was owed about $4.6 million. Fox's children TV network dropped Budgie from its 162 stations, and Bloomingdale's stopped selling it. Compounding this, the Motor Neuron Disease Association secretly decided not to re-elect her when her term as president ended in September. According to a charity insider, the big companies which people like us have to rely on for support simply won't touch her. They don't want to be associated with someone with such a bad press. The truth is that there is no longer any feel-good factor in being connected to the Duchess of York. She had also gained a reputation for canceling trips for her causes at the last minute, in the previous year and a half, having mysteriously pulled out of visits to Chernobyl, Bulgaria, and India, despite weeks of preparation. Her PR, Kate Waddington, was disputed to ring journalists to insist that it was the Duchess's own decision to stand down, and Sarah herself later claimed, "Given my other commitments, I wanted to move on to a job with less administration attached, perhaps to establish a new research committee. I stepped down as part of a normal planned rotation." Dominic Prince, who helped set up the MNDA and sat on the Corporate Advisory Council, recalled her unreliability, but perhaps pinpointed why some organizations were prepared to stick with the Duchess. She also got people like Robert Stigwood, the extremely wealthy Hollywood producer, to cough up a good deal of much-needed loot. I sat there and watched her do it. She promised that her then-estranged husband would attend a golf tournament and got pledges on the spot from big hitters who make up the council. The year before, Sarah had been responsible for raising £200,000 of the $2 million plus of income for the MNDA, said Prince, whose organization had an annual income of just £2,000 when it started. In November 1994, Prince Andrew had completed his first naval command, 18 months on HMS Cottesmore, a 60-meter minesweeper, part of the Tupperware fleet, built of glass-reinforced plastic to be totally anti-magnetic. Having been based at Rosyth in Scotland on fishery protection duties, it had allowed him to spend many weekends at Balmoral. Shortly before he left the ship for a couple of months' break, he appeared on a television program filmed in his cabin, which was filled with pictures of Sarah and by his children. "I want to go home and be with my family as much as I possibly can," he confessed, "but the ship, while I am commanding, has to come first to a certain extent." He added, "I do not believe I have been given this command because I was the Duke of York, but I have been given it because I hope I am a professional capable of doing it." Andrew spent the next few months holidaying and on royal duties. He also appears to have been in Azerbaijan, first flying with his PPO, Steve Burgess, to stay with Kyffin Simpson, a millionaire car dealer and golfing partner, in Barbados at Crane House, which Simpson had purchased in the York's name on the understanding that they could use it whenever they wanted. When Andrew returned to RNAS Portland, HMS Osprey, in February 1995, he did so as the senior pilot of 815 Naval Air Squadron, the only frontline squadron in the Royal Navy which operated the Lynx, and the largest squadron in the Fleet Air Arm, with 42 helicopters, 96 officers, and 420 sailors. As second-in-command and squadron executive officer, he was responsible for the unit's day-to-day function and collectively for the operational capability of its headquarters. His boss, Martin Davis, found him to be a competent and skillful pilot who, once he put on his flying suit, was focused and professional. However, the Duke was not a natural at attending to his management and organizing duties, and was easily distracted by events going on in his life. With his focus frequently on other matters, squadron members often had to seek guidance and direction elsewhere. He appeared to find great solace in the cockpit, where he knew precisely his role and was free from his other world. At 8:15 NAS, Andrew also worked in maritime counterterrorism and special operations, particularly charged with protecting oil rigs, dealing with narcotics in the Caribbean, and ferrying around special forces. On one occasion, flying some snipers back from a shooting range over Norfolk, he had surprised his passengers by making an unexpected landing on the lawns of a stately home and suggesting they stop for a cup of tea. In the hallway they were met by an elderly lady. The Queen paused to consider their snipers' rifles. "You can put those in there if you like," she said, pointing to an umbrella stand. Responsibility for Andrew's annual confidential report, known as a S-206, lay jointly with the squadron's commanding officer and the captain of RNAS Portland. They sought guidance up the chain of command, since Andrew was at a critical point in his career. This was likely to be his final flying appointment, and a move into general service awaited. The appeal went all the way to the First Sea Lord, Admiral Jock Slater, who advised them to treat him as any other naval officer in a similar position. "Be accurate, but fair," might have summed it up. Perhaps ill-advised by the palace, Andrew had not been relieved of royal duties while appointed to Osprey. Rather than focus on the job in hand, he appeared content to juggle commitments. He allowed his royal duties to creep up, often using them as an excuse to play golf. His staff in London repeatedly filled his diary, and he was reluctant to move away from that responsibility. In the end, it had to be removed from him in an attempt to provide focus on his naval career. However, the seesawing relationship with his wife remained a constant distraction during his time in 815 NAS. Davis felt he clearly possessed the character and skills to engage and entertain, since he did that as part of his royal role, but the Duke was unable to bring that into his relations with sailors and junior officers. He tried too hard to be the senior pilot, instead of bringing his own character and personality to the role. Davis had many conversations with him about presenting himself as the person he was, rather than what he thought he should be. Davis felt Andrew's final S-206 from the squadron and his role as executive officer perhaps provided the first accurate and true report he had received in the Navy. The report laid bare his shortcomings in leadership and rather disorganized management skills. He remained a competent pilot throughout. It is unlikely that this one report alone halted his career pathway, as regular reporting builds a picture. But it was a watershed moment that required a rethink of his next and subsequent roles. But the appraisal effectively did kill his career. From now on, jobs would be found for him, but he was going nowhere. Shortly after the final S-206 was submitted, and doubt was being raised about Andrew's next appointment, Prince Philip paid an informal visit to the squadron to seek background to his son's pending change of direction. The obvious next step would have been command of a frigate, having been a warfare officer or first lieutenant, but the feeling was that Andrew had neither the abilities nor the desire to take this path. In early 1996, he had been tipped as second in command of the warship HMS Cumberland, commanded by his brother-in-law, Captain Tim Lawrence, but the expected move never happened. At the end of July that year, it was announced that Andrew, who had considered resigning in 1988 to save his marriage, would leave the Navy in 1999 after 20 years. He had been passed over for promotion to commander 3 times, and had been told by Jock Slater that he had no future in the senior service. His Falklands commanding officer, Rafe Wyke Snade, felt the Royal Navy found itself in a difficult position. It was quite clear to all that, were he not a royal, his performance and potential did not warrant him being promoted to commander. Effectively, his career was over. He was unsuited to be the second in command, let alone command in a frigate or destroyer. Part of the problem, it was claimed, was Andrew's lack of a university degree, that he had no aptitude for maths, that his royal duties had interfered with his career progression, and that the Navy had lost 30% of its manpower in the previous 6 years, further reducing opportunities for promotion. A Buckingham Palace insider explained, "Technology in the Navy is getting ever more complicated. You have to be able to understand every sophisticated equipment. But this is all a bit beyond him." However, one of the Duke's superior officers has questioned this. "I never detected that any lack of math skills was causing concern in my time with him, and the Sea King Mark V was a pretty sophisticated aircraft. The problem was a lack of application in keeping himself up to speed with his professional skills and knowledge, as well as a lack of attention to fulfilling his duties properly." It appeared that Andrew had reached the summit of his naval career, and he could progress no further. Any further appointments would simply be a matter of finding him a role until he was retired. As an MOD official put it, "Andrew is a good, solid officer, but, in reality, he is no more than that." Sarah continued to flex her financial independence. In June 1996, it was announced she had joined the books of the New York's Next Management and would be charging about £25,000 a time to promote products at corporate events. The same month, Simon & Schuster announced it had bought a memoir. The reputed advance varied from £800,000 to £1.5 million, with editor-in-chief Michael Korda proclaiming, "We are delighted to have this unique opportunity of publishing a book in which the Duchess of York describes herself and her experiences as they were, rather than as they have been portrayed." We read that. It was revealed that she had also told the publishers, "See me write and I'll get you Di as well." And they had offered her another £1 million if she could persuade Diana into doing a book. A Simon & Schuster executive claimed, "The Di idea just grew out of the discussion. We explained we would expect Fergie to deliver an account of her close friendship with Diana. She then said maybe she could get Diana to write her own story for us." Sarah had been paid £50,000 for 2 days' work promoting Rupert Murdoch's Foxtel cable network, and there were reports that she was in discussions to teach Americans proper etiquette, such as how to use the correct cutlery and how to make polite conversation with a royal. That'll come in handy. She signed with Paris Match, a magazine she had sued 4 years earlier for publishing the toe-sucking photos, to interview 6 celebrities at £10,000 per article, and with Olympus to advertise a new camera for $32,000. It was announced Revlon would pay her £1 million to launch the Duchess range of perfumes, though the deal was subsequently cancelled. The autobiography was only the first part of the plan. As part of a strategy masterminded by some American tycoons, Sarah was now being promoted as a shrewd businesswoman, author, and chat show host. They wanted her on Oprah Winfrey, David Letterman, and Diane Sawyer, all aimed at exposure, which would generate lucrative endorsement and merchandising spin-offs. Howard Rubenstein, her PR advisor, threw a lavish party for her to meet New York's movers and shakers, including Al Lippert, founder of Weight Watchers. It was an introduction which was to transform her life. She also had help developing her business activities from the Hong Kong businessman David Tang. In September 1996, she flew, traveling as the Countess of Inverness, to Hong Kong, and then for a picnic on the Great Wall of China for the opening of his China Club in Beijing. Annual membership, £12,865. Among the 68 people also flown in were the actors Michael Caine and Kevin Costner. The American movie star became the subject of her next obsession. After she had plagued him with raunchy phone calls, he reputedly told friends, "She's a woman crying out for love." Aw, that just sounds just like Kevin Costner. I like him. It was also reported that she had called the New York Times to deny that she was suicidal, and a royal aide was quoted saying, "We have gone beyond chronicling the number of the Duchess's indiscretions. We are into a situation where we must monitor moods carefully. She is very disturbed, and we are under instructions to keep an eye on her." Alan Starkey remembered Sarah once telling him, deciding whether to stay or leave Andrew, "If it weren't for the children, the only answer would be to kill myself." She said this not in a mood of depression, as she had many times in the past, but rather as if she had suddenly come to a clear and logical conclusion. It was a sentiment she was to repeat to me many times. And I think that Alan Starkey was probably someone who was well-placed to make a comment on this because he himself had a suicide attempt. So I think he is being sincere in that she probably sincerely felt that way, because he would recognize that in her, right? The Duchess continued to live beyond her means, employing a staff of 17 that included a cook, driver, maid, butler, dresser, nanny, 3 secretaries, a personal assistant, lady-in-waiting, accountant, an accountant's assistant, 2 gardeners, flower arranger, and dog walker. An accountant brought in to cut costs asked one member of staff what he did, and received the reply, "I pick up the dog shit." "And you?" he asked, pointing to the person beside him. "I help him." Now, apparently this was a Portuguese man and his wife, and it's the wife who said, "I help him." I heard Andrew Lowney give an interview recently, and that's what he said. The Duchess remained in denial about her debts. According to a friend, "I have heard her throw an absolute screaming fit when one of her staff showed her a letter from the bank. She just doesn't want to know." The tantrums kept staff turnover rate high. "Car journeys are the worst," said one aide. "She will sit on the phone screaming at employees and reduce everyone to wrecks. Then she will wonder why we are so unhappy." A friend expressed concern about Sarah's behavior at social functions, which could often be a performance and inappropriate, but masked deeper insecurities. "She assumes, quite wrongly, that she has to sing for her supper. She tells dirty jokes. I have seen her among a group of people she had never met before, doing the fake orgasm sketch from When Harry Met Sally. The following morning she will ring around seeking reassurance that she had not made an ass of herself." The Sun ran a telephone poll. "Would you rather date Fergie or a goat?" 7-1 voted for the goat. Madame Vasso was first to publish on the Yorks. The opening serial extract of the Healer's memoir, which Sarah had tried to stop, appeared on 30 September 1996 and focused on her sex life. Fergie, "I taught prudish Andy how to make love." It was just one of numerous revelations from Vasso's book, and the 4-day serial was accompanied by a transcript of Sarah's taped conversations with the healer, in which she discussed her love life, financial woes, and her father, the madman, who was himself revealed to have debts of £774,000, and who had also decided to jump on the publicity bandwagon and give an interview to another paper about his daughter. John Bryan's friend Alan Starkey had also written a memoir, scheduled to come out at the same time as Sarah's own My Story, which she had been planning ever since her separation. Starkey's book threatened to derail her own book and was potentially even more damaging than Vasso's, as he knew her intimately. She had initially attempted to injunct it, but did not have the required £500,000 to put into court, and had also come under pressure from the Queen, who did not want her to be open to cross-examination in the witness box. Her legal efforts cost her £200,000, and the publisher, Michael O'Mara, threatened to countersue for £2 million for loss of profits, saying she was using the English courts to keep the truth from the British people. She is publishing her own version of events, as vetted by the Palace, in a few weeks. She, and perhaps the Palace as well, have an interest in keeping the truth from the public. With so many revelations elsewhere, and after she had demanded a further £100,000 for an exclusive interview to run with the extracts of her own book, OK Magazine pulled out of a £500,000 serialization deal. At the beginning of November, Starkey's Fergie, Her Secret Life, began a 6-day serialization in the Daily Mail, for which the paper had paid £170,000. It appeared simultaneously with the serialization of My Story, now in Hello. In his book, Starkey, who had signed a confidentiality agreement with the Duchess, described the rough sex she enjoyed with Brian, which once left her bleeding, how the Texan had slapped her across her face after she ordered him to treat her like a tart, and the growing tension with Brian as she delayed divorcing Andrew. And yet John still had some bizarre magical hold on her. After an attractive woman showed interest in Brian, Sarah asked him to marry her. Starkey ran to congratulate her. There was a silence, then, "What are you talking about?" When pressed, she paused. "Yes, I said something. Yes, I did say something, but I wasn't serious." That same month, My Story was published in the United States, with a first printing of 400,000 copies and interviews with Oprah Winfrey, Rosie O'Donnell, David Letterman, Larry King, and ABC's Diane Sawyer. Sarah told Sawyer that during her marriage she watched videos while Andrew had it away with 27 concubines. At the same time, Delacourt Press published 2 new books from the Duchess aimed at 7 to 11-year-olds. The Royal Switch and Bright Lights, featuring 2 look-alike 11-year-old girls, Princess Amanda of Britain and Emily Chornock of Brooklyn Heights, which she had dedicated to my best friends, her daughters Beatrice and Eugenie. It was a slick publicity campaign for which she was coached by a series of advisors, but the Mail was quick to challenge many of her public statements. The paper identified a number of claims she had made, which it said were not true. After she said she was gullible and naive when she got married, it pointed out that she had lived with a much older man from the age of 23. And rather than her being a good mother, Starkey's book had revealed her lack of emotional continuity, and her children starved of attention. Well, I mean, I think you can be gullible and naive and be with an older man. I mean, I think that's why a lot of older men, like to be with younger women, because they aren't as astute and they do kind of let you get away with more, and they don't quite know themselves yet. So I find that to be sort of a silly point to make. And I think that for Sarah, pardon me while I have a little sip, I think that Sarah thought that she was a good mother because a lot of times when she was away, she took her girls with her. And I think for her, that was being a good mother because her mother just left. And so, she took her girls into all these situations where she absolutely shouldn't have taken them with all these men they shouldn't have been around. But I think that was Sarah's version of being a good mother because she always had them with her. I mean, except for obviously those times where it says that she didn't get back, for them to start school and things like that. She twice refused to answer questions on whether she had been unfaithful, denied that she had contemplated suicide, and claimed to be best buddies with Diana when they had in fact been competitive and jealous of each other. Promoting the book, Sarah told Sky News, who had put her up at the Berkeley Hotel, she would not do the interview unless paid £20,000. The broadcaster responded by saying her blackmail attempt would be the lead item on the news if she refused. She agreed to do the interview, but was not forthcoming. That is such a good turnabout moment, A BBC interview by Ruby Wax, watched by 12 million people, lampooned her as they toured Kingsbourne together, both indulging in psychobabble, highlighting the yellow labels identifying the drawers for various colors of T-shirts, and a cushion that read, "Anyone can be a mother. It takes someone special to be a mummy." After the Duchess's Dalmatian ate Wax's bagel, the comedian was heard to exclaim, "Oh my God! Even your animals have no self-control." Sarah's continued use of HRH caused controversy, as she claimed it had not been formally withdrawn. Royal lawyers quickly pointed out that she had been stripped of the title months before, through an announcement in the London Gazette. Buckingham Palace appeared outwardly relaxed by some of her disclosures, which included her belief that she was being bugged by the intelligence services and that the palace had leaked her south of France holiday to the paparazzi to send a warning to Diana. But there was concern, the Sunday Times reported, that she may reach in her locker for one last bomb. The British Embassy in Washington was asked to monitor her public utterances, and the Queen took legal advice about the options to control the Duchess, including removing custody of her daughters and cutting her maintenance payments. The broadsheet opined, "It remains to be seen whether any amount of strenuous soul-bearing will seriously alter the British public's perception of the Duchess as a willful, spoiled, and stupid young woman who has caused the royal family unforgivable grief." Writing in the same paper, psychiatrist Anthony Clare took a longer view. He felt Sarah was psychologically adrift, and suggested the departure of her mother during her childhood had led her to don a devil-may-care mask. She attracted and became attracted to a circle of similar, on-the-make, ambitious, insecure losers, histrionic con men, greedy women, quick-fix merchants, and phonies. She might not possess true strength of character, but even the psychiatrist could not deny her talent for survival. Her U.S. trip, however, appeared to have been a commercial success. It was reported that she had signed a £3 million Hollywood deal for her own series of shows, based on Annika Rice's TV hit Challenge Annika. In the show, Special Adventures with the Duchess, she would become a gondolier, trek through deserts, climb glaciers, and perform dangerous stunts alongside celebrity guests. It would air the following year as Adventures with the Duchess. I think I remember that. I think I remember my mom watching that. Thanks to her performance promoting her memoir, which reached number 3 in the U.S. charts, there were suggestions she could be offered a U.S. talk show contract 5 days a week, worth £12 million per annum. But the idea came to nothing. Market research showed that many Americans found her accent hard to understand. And showbiz stars, among them Madonna, Steven Spielberg, Bruce Willis, and Demi Moore, were reluctant to be interviewed. Sarah's meeting with the founder of Weight Watchers earlier in the year had, however, borne fruit. She was now a size 10, and it was announced she would become the public face of the slimming organization, of which she had been a member, aged 19, in a deal worth £500,000 over 3 years. One of the terms stipulated that she must stay under 10 stone. Andrew had also managed to lose weight, dropping from 15 to 13.5 stone in 2 weeks on a crash diet of 600 calories a day. That is not enough for a grown man. Consisting of stewed prunes for breakfast. You know what? I'm going to put pictures up because we need to visualize this monstrosity. Stewed prunes for breakfast, raw vegetables for lunch, and soup for supper. He was now dating a 29-year-old BBC researcher, Henriette Peace, a former model and a close friend of Cassie Neville, whom he had briefly met when she worked at Buckingham Palace in 1987. After they met again at a London party thrown by a mutual friend, there was instant chemistry, according to one guest. A Navy friend of the Duke said he had really fallen head over heels for her. I have never seen him so happy. The Duke had been desperately trying to keep it a secret, but, according to the source, his friends all knew, as did the London social set. The couple realized it was going to come out, but were trying to keep everything under wraps as long as possible. Andrew had not taken her to any restaurants or parties, instead resorting to cloak and dagger stuff, meeting up with her when he could. Yet it didn't last. After 6 months, the relationship with Peace would come to an end. In the summer of 1997, after she felt continually sidelined in favor of his ex-wife, Andrew had chosen to go to Tuscany with his family, rather than take Peace to Barbados. I mean, he should have taken his family, in my opinion. That was the right decision. In January 1997, Sarah had become the first royal to endorse a product on television when she advertised Ocean Spray Cranberry Drink for a fee of $500,000. It took over 100 takes to create the 2 30-second shots. The following month, for £100,000, she accepted an invitation from an Austrian building magnate, Richard Logner, to open a shopping precinct in Vienna, do a book signing, and, like Joan Collins, Sophia Loren, and Raquel Welch before her, accompany him to the Vienna Opera Ball, the highlight of the nation's social calendar. Addressed variously as Your Highness, Lady Ferguson, Lady Sarah, and Princess, she was first escorted through the shopping center by fake guardsmen, while an Oompa band played the national anthem. Logner's 31-year-old wife, dressed in leather trousers, then presented Sarah with a pillowcase with her face emblazoned on it. The pitch line for the pillow was that you too could sleep with the Duchess. By February, it appeared she had paid off her debts, though she still had a £1.6 million tax bill to clear, helped by the advance on her memoirs, the Weight Watchers' income, the advertisement, the 6 interviews with Paris Match, and £300,000 for 2 children's books. She had now moved from Kingsbourne back to Sunninghill, which was empty during the week while Andrew worked at the Ministry of Defence in London, ostensibly to save rent. It was also suspected to frustrate the Duke's love life, and as a negotiation negotiating position in the divorce. The Queen and Prince Philip were supposedly furious, but it was also suspected. Oh, I'm so sorry. I jumped a line. The Queen and Prince Philip were supposedly furious, aware that Andrew could not move on in his life if she remained living with him. They offered to find more money to allow her to rent elsewhere, but for once Andrew stood up to his parents, with both of whom he had generally good relations, though his father thought he was not always sufficiently dedicated to his royal duties. The arrangement suited the couple. She saved money and enjoyed a royal lifestyle. He saw more of his children in a securely protected property, and it ensured she did not indulge in some of the business activities that caused the royal family so much embarrassment. But the agreement did not stop Sarah from her money-making. In April, she began writing a column for the New York Times syndication section, which was sold to 75 U.S. papers and syndicated worldwide, helped by Jeff Copeland, who had ghosted her memoir, for which each was paid £5,000 an article. The same month, OK Magazine paid her £200,000 for an interview in which she said she was trying to leave the Duchess of York behind and develop Sarah's potential. In May, she undertook a 10-day American lecture tour, garnering another £200,000. She met the golfer Tiger Woods, taking a 1,500-mile flight to see him and inviting him to join her at McNally's villa that summer. Piers Morgan noted in his diary a dinner with Sarah at the private London club, Mosselman's, the following month. She got more hilariously indiscreet as the evening wore on. I asked her how her love life was going, and she squealed with laughter. "I'm in love," she said excitedly. "Blimey," I replied. "Who's the lucky guy?" "Well, he's more of a boy, really, and he doesn't know yet. It's Tiger Woods. He's so gorgeous," she cooed. "Do you think I stand a chance with him?" When Morgan suggested Woods might not have much room in his schedule for dating royals, Fergie roared again. "Well, I am going to follow him around the course for a bit and see how I get on." Morgan concluded, "Poor old Tiger isn't going to know what's hit him." Lord. Wild. On 31 August 1997, after being pursued by paparazzi through Paris, Princess Diana was killed when the car she was in plowed into a pillar in an underpass in the French capital. The two women, once close, had not spoken for months, after Sarah had written about her sister-in-law against Diana's wishes in her memoir, and made a joke about catching, a verruca from one of Diana's shoes. Remember, she made that comment about the wart, and I was like, girl, is this your friend or not? The two were fourth cousins and had known each other since they were teenagers. Their mothers had been at school together and had the shared experience of their mothers being denied custody of their children. Well, we said this before. It's not that Sarah's mother was denied custody, it's that she said she didn't want to keep them from their schooling, so she took off to be with her little man there. Sarah and Diana had bonded over their frustration with royal bureaucracy, New Age interests, husbands they felt did not sufficiently appreciate them, and children born only a few years apart. They also shared an irreverent sense of humor, deep insecurities, and a desire to be the center of attention. Diana was regularly at one of Sarah's homes, at one point every Sunday, sharing the problems in their marriages, tactics against the royal household and family, and plotting their escape. Diana described them as the terrible twins, Sarah as the wicked wives of Windsor. Symbolically, she gifted Diana the Great Escape film. But there had also been an element of jealousy and competitiveness. Sarah called Diana Blondie, Little Miss Perfect, or Miss Goody Two-Shoes. Diana called her Dutch. Sarah felt the Princess of Wales, more popular and more stylish, was able to get away with behavior she could not. Diana envied Ferguson's more relaxed and closer relationship with the Queen, and initially with the rest of the royal family, thanks to her equine interests and talent and love of country pursuits. Both had enjoyed press attention and vied with each other for column inches in the media and would even brief against each other. For most of the almost 5 years he knew the Duchess, Alan Starkey felt them to be in competition. They were fighting an ongoing battle through the use of their charities and using the press as a weapon. They would look like actresses on opening night at their reviews of their latest charity trips and compare them and whine if the other one got better views. How immature. These women really were children at heart. It's like they didn't get past 16 years old. David Lee, who ghosted the Madame Vassal memoir, remembered them falling out over Sarah promoting an AIDS charity, a close cause to Diana's heart. Despite Fergie's attempts to apologize, they didn't speak for weeks. See that right there? That tells you that Diana didn't care so much about the actual cause, right? Like, if you care deeply about something, you just want that to get recognition and help and, to gain more momentum. But if you get mad because someone else is, stepping on your territory, that's something else. You don't actually care about the charity. You just care about your place in it. Ultimately, the Duchess's behavior increasingly alienated her from the royal family and the public, and Diana had become more independent and confident. The Princess of Wales was careful to distance herself from her old friend, while still using her, as she put it, as the canary down the mine shaft, to test her own tentative attempts to leave an unhappy marriage. This is so toxic. I can't even get over how toxic this is. According to Diana's private secretary, Patrick Jeffson, she let the axe fall on the relationship once she realized Sarah no longer had special access to the Queen or any useful Windsor family intelligence to relay. It was a friendship that had outlived its usefulness. In spite of Sarah's later claims, the friendship was never repaired. After Diana's death, her former friend wrote that she had what was described as a long, rambling, and very emotional letter to Charles, which found its way to the Sun newspaper. The inference was that this was simply another attempt to ingratiate herself back into the royal family. The day after the letter was made public, the William Hickey gossip column revealed that Sarah had met Hello director Eduardo Sanchez Junco to discuss how she might fill the yawning gap left by the death of the Duchess. Who sold more copies than anyone else. She basically agreed to give Hello everything about her for a monthly retainer, said a source. The deal was thought to be worth £100,000 a month. Goodness. Imagine, Diana dies and you run to Hello Magazine. You're like, okay, I see you have an opening in your roster. How about me? Ugh. Just before Christmas 1997, Sarah hired the divorce lawyer, Anthony Julius, who had secured £17 million settlement for Diana, determined to improve the settlement that Brian had negotiated. She had now begun a relationship with an Italian count, Gatto della Gherardesca, 10 years older than her, to whom she had been introduced by David Tang the previous August. By the autumn of 1998, she was flying every weekend to Italy. In February 1999, she would give up, having run up a £70,000 bill. Oh, sorry, the formatting is really messed up. Okay, so she was introduced to this Italian guy, 10 years older than her. By the autumn of 1998, she was flying every weekend to Italy, and she was so well known at his estate that she quickly became known as the Duchess of Constanetto. In September, Della Gherardesca's ex-wife told the newspaper that the couple were engaged and that she had absolutely no objection to their affair. I do not know when the wedding is, but I am certain I will be invited. Finally, the following month, Sarah confirmed the press reports. Yes, of course, he's my boyfriend and we are very close. She seemed able to attract, but also to spend money in a way that mortals struggle to understand. As part of her relationship with Weight Watchers, in January 1997, she had published Dining with the Duchess, making everyday meals a special occasion, a cookery book only on sale in America, for which she was paid £300,000, and which was to reach number 8 in the bestseller list. Thanks largely to her, Weight Watchers membership had risen by 80%. In May, she had a cameo role in the series finale of sitcom Friends, watched by 20 million Americans and 7 million in the UK, giving her appearance fee to charity. The same month, it was reported she had been lined up to host a lifestyle show on Sky One in a £200,000 deal. In July, she was paid £60,000 to interview Michael Douglas about his sex addiction for Hello. And in August, that she had been signed up for £50,000 to host a Sky TV studio-based series, Surviving Life, with the upfront fee going to charity, though it was not revealed that the back-end payments would go to her. The relationship with the Count was deepening. On 8 September, Sarah flew to Italy to attend a ball with him, returning the next day to go to the wedding of her butler, Ian Lowe, to Claire Comper, a member of the Royal Protection Squad. She had only just returned to Italy when tragedy struck. On 19 September 1998, Susan Barantis was returning to her ranch at Tres Lomas, 400 miles southwest of Buenos Aires, with her 25-year-old nephew, Raphael. She was almost home and was, as often, driving at over 100 miles per hour. Tired, she plowed into a delivery truck. Raphael suffered minor injuries, the driver of the truck a broken ankle. But Barantis, who was not wearing a seatbelt, was decapitated. Oh my God. Oh my God. Sarah flew to Argentina, where she found a stack of unpaid bills and the electricity, gas, telephone, and hot water turned off. After Hector's death, Susan had struggled to deal with the debts he had left. As willful as her daughter, she had ignored advice to sell her mares at a good price, thinking she could do better. The following year, she had to sell them for half the price. An attempt to break into the equine artificial insemination business had also failed. She had launched a television production company, opened an office in Buenos Aires, had taken out £50,000 mortgage on a small apartment, and borrowed £250,000 to buy an editing console, making programs on polo and show jumping, but her business had gone bankrupt. Oh my Lord, girl, I'm telling you, if I was her, the first thing I would have done would have been sell everything and go back to the UK. That's the first thing I would have done. She had persuaded Prince Charles to contribute the foreword for a glossy coffee table book about polo, but that too failed. Sarah had made monthly financial contributions, and she and Brian had earlier tried to help, but Susan had reached a point where she had sold off most of the acreage at El Picura and could no longer pay the ranch hands. Yet she had remained optimistic, making plans for an upmarket adventure travel business to the Andes. Her daughters were now left to sort out her affairs. Sarah's relationship with her mother had been complex. In her first volume of autobiography, published 2 years earlier, she had described Susan as simply the most brilliant, zestful person I have ever met, who organized the family's ski trips and Christmases and the most elaborate, colorful birthday parties, casting her mother as the type your friends would praise as super cool. Sarah wrote, "Mom just made everything happen." For public consumption, she professed to be happy for her mother after Susan found love with Hector Barantis, writing that as a child, "I never felt anger toward Mom. I never stopped loving her. Abandonment is relative, and I would not risk losing what claims I had left. I could still cruise around with Mom to polo and smile at the slow-eyed Argentine men and stay with her and Hector on some weekends, though I wasn't sure that she was definitely with me because Hector came first, and you wouldn't want to be in the way." But, according to Madame Vasso, Sarah was angry with her mother for starting a new life in South America without her. "I could never leave my girls. They're far too precious to me. I really don't know how she could have gone off like that. I can't imagine being so far away from my babies and not being able to see them for months on end." Asked by Giles Brandreth for Mother's Day in 2001 if she missed her mother, she simply replied, "I think of her every day." Surviving Life, a series of 10 one-hour programs on topics ranging from weight loss to murder, began transmission on Sky in October 1998. But despite being the first chat show to be presented by a royal, pulled in a disappointing 12,000 viewers. Similar morning shows might expect 1 million. There would be no second series, but NBC's Today Breakfast show recruited her at £400,000 a year as a roving reporter to carry out interviews with ordinary people, and in April 1999 it was reported that Sarah had been given a 2-year contract worth £1 million to promote another of Irish businessman Tony O'Reilly's companies, Waterford Wedgwood in America. This required the Duchess to appear at up to 25 events at department stores, attend a trade fair in Frankfurt twice a year, and promote a Sarah range named after the wife of founder Josiah Wedgwood. A spokesman said, "We are going to try to position her as a spokesman, presenting Wedgwood as essential, something English and yet something more contemporary." Brian Patterson, Wedgwood's chief executive from 1995 to 2001, remembered how O'Reilly had hired the Duchess without making any provision in the budget, feeling that she represented British heritage and would, in particular, appeal to the company's American and Japanese customers. She was brilliant at working a room, fresh, chic, and wasn't stuffy. She was royalty but different, and they loved it. The company quickly rose from being the 6th most popular China producer in America to the 2nd. It seemed, after her recent setbacks, her fortunes were on the up. And we are going to stop there today. We are actually just about halfway through. So we are really kind of flying through this. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Sorry that it's the time of day and the light is streaming through the curtains. So I'm patterned. But thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Bye.